Jacob Rees-Mogg has delivered what he clearly imagines to be a Churchillian warning. In his telling, Nigel Farage is being hunted by a shadowy coalition of officials, civil servants, lawyers, police officers, who answer only to a higher and sinister authority. This loose network, which he calls the blob, not unlike Liz Truss, apparently, not that I'm saying the blob looks like Liz Truss, apparently something sort of jelly-like blancmange. What's happened to blancmange? Apparently, this blob controls Britain and sets out to destroy any political figure who challenges its monopoly of power. It is, he argues, the same hidden establishment that tried to destroy Donald Trump. So it's got a transatlantic feel to it as well. Yum, yum. It thrives on abusing process, bending rules, and weaponizing legal systems against populist leaders. This is compelling theatre. It is also entirely nonsense. Let's begin with the facts, because Rees-Mogg ignored those. The allegation that Reform UK breached electoral spending rules was not submitted by anonymous agents of a bureaucratic deep state. It came from a person called Richard Everett, a man who stood beside Farage on the campaign trail, worked on the Clacton operation and signed off expenses. Everett, not the sublime actor, submitted evidence to the Metropolitan Police on the 5th of December. The police didn't seek him out. He went to them, and his complaint alleges specific elements of spending that may have been incorrectly recorded as national expenditure rather than local. This is not speculation. It is a matter of receipts, invoices, and the statutory responsibilities of a party agent. Rees-Mogg insists that the police should not even be examining the complaint because the 12-month time limit has expired. Yet the timeline contradicts him. Everett moved within that limit. His report is now with Essex Police because that is the jurisdiction in which any offence would have taken place. It is a subtle form of due process. Rees-Mogg doesn't mention it. He cannot because it punctures his entire performance. It squashes the blob. He suggests that the system flexes to persecute his political friends. The brutal truth is more prosaic. When a former agent presents evidence that spending limits were exceeded by thousands of pounds, the police are obliged to assess it. That protects democracy, it doesn't threaten it. And he argues that Farage is being targeted because he terrifies elites, yet in British politics, where enforcement is famously cautious, a candidate rarely faces criminal sanction for simple administrative error. Craig McKinley was acquitted after a lengthy process over similar accusations. If anything, the state has historically erred on the side of under-enforcement, not persecution. Rees-Mogg knows this perfectly well. He prefers the melodrama of the attack of the blancmange. Yet there is his comparison with the United States. Trump was not pursued because he questioned an election. He was pursued because he pressured officials to falsify results and encouraged supporters to block the formal transfer of power. He was pursued because he had irregular relationships. Calling that a mere disagreement over process is an attempt to rewrite contemporary history while we are still living it. The same technique is used when he raises Marine Le Pen's expenses case. He wants to imply unequal enforcement. Instead, he reveals that European institutions take misuse of public money seriously, regardless of political colour. An argument that rests on the premise that accountability itself is oppression tells us much about the author's political morality. What Rees-Mogg advances is not a defence, it's a strategy. By painting investigations as illegitimate, any future finding of wrongdoing becomes further proof of conspiracy. By painting investigations as some sort of attack by nursery food, it shows a form of absurdity. It's a perfect self-sealing system. A political philosopher would call this the immunization of belief against reality. A prosecutor might call it prejudicing an active case. A citizen might call it dangerous. Farage's supporters are entitled to argue that their man is relentlessly scrutinised because he's controversial. They're not entitled to turn scrutiny into persecution, nor can they pretend that British institutions collapse the moment someone looks at them, looks at a spending form. The selective fury, the refusal to acknowledge basic facts, and the insistence that rules are traps when applied to them all point to a deeper truth. They do not believe that the law constrains them. They believe the law ought to serve them, or ought to serve them custard, with blancmange and jelly. Mogg suggests that free speech, elections, and democratic accountability are being suppressed. Yes, in this very case, it is the Conservative chair, the Labour chair, Electoral Commission, and journalists of several stripes who have demanded transparency. That is what democracy looks like. Transparency, standards, evidence, not nursery food. The irony is exquisite. The man who claims Britain is ruled by an unnamed elite is himself a former cabinet minister, an old Etonian, a financier, a leader of the House of Commons. You can't get more elite than that. The blob, he imagines, is simply the public sector performing its duty. It's not sinister. It is the minimum that voters expect. And so the conclusion is stark. Either these allegations prove unfounded, in which case reform will surely welcome the clearing of its name, or they are serious enough to warrant further action. There is no conspiracy in that. There is simply the rule of law applying to everyone, whether they are anonymous backbenchers or newly crowned populist leaders. Nigel Farage has one obligation here, corporate, to recognise that he leads a semi-national party, that he was elected by a constituency. Now, if there was irregularity in that, then he needs to cooperate with the police and work out whether or not that irregularity was his doing or somebody else's doing or a mistake or whatever, offer documents, support his agent, and if he believes the accusations are wrong, then he can prove it. This is not oppression, this is accountability. Rees Mogg should not fear it unless, of course, he has reason to, unless, of course, he's had a very unpleasant experience with the blob in the past in the nursery. Maybe he did.